Thank you for tuning in to What's Going On. My name is Lorenzo Lawson. I'm your host, offering you the most of what's going on in Columbia and surrounding area. What's Going On is a show designed especially for you, to keep you informed with what's going on. If it may affect you any kind of way, then we want to talk about it and get to the roots of it so that we can know what's going on. We're going to kick this show off by looking at what's going on with the surge of youth violence that's in Columbia. We have invited the 5th Ward City Council Representative, Lord Nausser, and the 2nd Ward City Council Representative, Michael Trapp, who are co-chair of the Mayor's Task Force on Community Violence. Welcome, Ms. Nausser and Mr. Trapp. Thank you for agreeing to be our first guest on What's Going On. As I stated in the introduction, the show is focusing on what's going on with the plague of youth violence that are occurring in our community. Recently, there was a shooting near the Columbia Mall. And as co-chairs of the Mayor's Task Force on Community Violence, what is the task force doing towards curtailing this youth violence? Ms. Nausser?
Well, at the moment, we are actually gathering information of what has happened in the past. Over the past 5 years, we're looking at the homicides, and we're looking at all of the information surrounding those homicides so that we can put together the pieces that we may not be seeing as a community. And so we're still in the investigative stage on the task force, and I think the next meeting we're going to be having the school district come and speak to us so we can see what's happening in the schools. And so right now we're in that investigatory stage where we're gathering the information so that we can make an informed, reasonable decision on what to do in the future.
Mr. Trapp, what would you add to that?
I think Ms. Nausser did a nice job of describing the task force. You know, a lot of times media contacts me about specific violent incidents, and my take on it is that this is really more of a chronic problem. This is nothing that is new in Columbia or anywhere else, but it's something that's ongoing. It's very serious, but so sometimes there's a sense of urgency or immediacy. But I think we do best when we take our time to really examine, to make sure that we really understand what's going on with Columbia before we really try to put a lot of resources into things that may not be what are the drivers in our own particular community for violence. So we want to really make sure that with our limited resources that we make recommendations that target what's really happening.
Thank you. What's Going On is a brand new show that we want to invite audience members to come. If you want to come and be in a live audience and ask your questions or just be here, you can come if you want to. Show up at 4:30. The show will be going live at 5 p.m. The directions are 1405 East Broadway, Hillis Communication Center, in the hallway below Windsor Auditorium here at Stephen College, right here in Columbia, Missouri. The next show is scheduled for Tuesday, December the 3rd, and it will be live at 5 p.m. You can RSVP by Monday, December the 2nd, if you want to be a live audience. The phone number is 573-442-4447, or you can email us at info@columbiaaccess.tv. For more information, go to our website at www.columbiaaccess.tv. The re-airing of this particular show will be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. or on Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. And you can always get in contact with us, or you can send in your questions via Twitter at #ComoWGO, or email at wgo@columbiaaccess.tv, or you can call in live at 573-876-7158. Well, to get back to our question, the mayor's task force on community violence was created by our mayor, Bob McDavid, on August the 5th, 2013, to address the ongoing issues of violence in the community, especially among our youth. The task force is charged with providing a comprehensive recommendation of programs and actions that will have a measurable and lasting impact for reducing violence. So when is this recommendations or the program recommendation, when are they due to the mayor?
We asked for 15 months. We had at least looked at a year, but I didn't know if that would be a sufficient amount of time to make sure that the recommendations that we're making have broad base of support and are going to be the best, most informed recommendations that we could make. So we're looking at no later than November of 2014. So about a year from today, if we take the full amount of time. There's nothing in the ordinance that says that we can't end quicker than that. And I think the proposed timeline that we've looked at might move us, we might be able to get done before that.
Okay. Now, the task force, how many members is on the task force?
It's 13 citizens, and then Laura and myself are the co-chairs, and then we have a staff person. So 13, 15, or 16, depending on how you want to count it.
Okay. And how often do the task force meet?
We meet twice a month on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month down at
Okay.
City Hall. And so the public is invited to come. We do allow for public comment at the end of the council meeting or at the end of the task force meeting, so we want to hear from the public. And I have to say, we've had a good turnout of community members and people coming and expressing their concerns and offering some suggestions.
So you've been meeting since when? September or?
I think we had our first meeting in September.
Okay. And now we're at what part? How much progress have we made?
Well, we've came up with kind of a plan of action of how we're going to address issues. We've, in partnership with the Youth Community Coalition, we've launched a survey to young people to see what kind of programming they would be interested in and what they think would be impactful. We've had presentations by the Columbia Police Department that has given us some idea. We've looked at some of the statistics involved in homicides and shot-fired incidents, and then we've begun to explore what are the particular drivers for those incidents. So we have we created sort of a grid sheet or a worksheet that we can take each homicide and we can look and identify what are the factors. And then we had one of the task force members, Dan Hannikin, has done a lot of work on reentry. And so there's a lot of national research on what are the drivers of violence. And so we started with that. And then in discussions, we realized that one thing that was missing was faith. And what were people's involvement in the faith community, and is that a factor or not a factor? So we thought that for our own unique situations that we're going to, so that's kind of what we're doing, is taking a look at data, but then also looking at our own unique situations, because Columbia is not just any town, but we have our own particular set of strengths, like the faith community, and then problem areas that might be unique to us. So we want to really make sure that we're not just trying to shoehorn Columbia into some kind of quick fix, but that it really fits who we are as a people.
Okay. Ms. Nauser, now, you guys are volunteering on this task force, right?
Correct.
So what made you volunteer to be a co-chair?
Well, I have a passion for the youth in our community, and I've been looking at the crime statistics in our community since my second term, and noticed back in 2007 we had a surge in violent crime. And so at that time I had suggested and put together a policy paper that I presented to the community of suggestions I thought we could do as a community to start to address some of these issues. And actually, one of those suggestions at that time was a task force. Unfortunately, it didn't, take root, and we weren't able to move forward on it at that point in time. And it took some of the tragic incidents over this past summer to really get the community aware of the issue, and kind of, the incident that happened downtown on Broadway, I think really gave a visual for the people in our community, which I think was the catalyst to get people really concerned and wanting to take action. And so I had suggested that to the mayor, and he thought it was a good idea, and so I was happy and glad that he took that and allowed us, and Michael and I, to co-chair that task force.
Good, good. Well, being the executive director of the Youth Empowerment Zone, this is something that's very, very dear to my heart, because I've been trying to get the city and our community to look more at what's going on with these young people for us, the violence and everything. And what we're doing at the Youth Empowerment Zone is our way of combating that type of scenario, or trying to get these young people to turn away from violence. What other programs that you guys know of that may be doing the same thing? In this survey that you was talking about, I think you said the Youth Coalition.
The Youth YC Squared, the Youth Community Coalition.
Coalition.
And I'm not sure about what all of the groups that are involved with that coalition. And that's something that I think we still need to address. Is I'm still not entirely sure who all are working with youth in our community. And we've kind of focused on making an assessment of what are who are the actors in violent acts, and what are they like, and what's going on with them. And I think it's still an unanswered question, at least for what I know, is what are we already doing to address those issues? But that's definitely something that we're going to establish. We have a working website where we can share information as members of the task force, and one of the tools that's on that is sort of a matrix that lists a lot of groups and organizations that are already involved with that. But I can't say that I know the answer to that question right now.
And if you have a question and you want to ask of our two distinguished guests, you can ask that question via Twitter, and that is hashtag Como WGO, or you can email at WGO@Columbia Access TV. Or you can call us right here in the studio at 573-876-7158. So if you have a question, you can use one of those medias and ask your question, and we will be sure to try to answer it for you. Have the survey that have been taken, have the data been collected and looked at?
As far as the youth survey?
Yes.
No, we just came up, I think, with the meeting before last, some of the questions, and I think we'll probably need to go back and reevaluate the final list of questions so that we can narrow it down and make sure that it's something that, because we're targeting the youth in our community, so we don't want it to be too broad and too long. And we want to make sure that we have it focused on, the things that will lead us maybe to some of the answers we're looking for. So hopefully, we'll be able to fine tune that and get that out. And again, I think there's some logistics about who and how that's going to be administered, and specifically what ages we're going to target. So there's still some questions that we're working on regarding that survey.
Okay. And so right now the task force is at what point, what we're doing now?
I would say we're at an information gathering and analysis stage. Jerry Taylor, the CEO of MFA, felt that it was really important to look at the specific violent incidents. And I'm calling that sort of an ethnographic approach, where, and then we've divided the task force up into work teams based upon the group members' strengths. The task members are a diverse group of folks. Some have more research-based things, some have stronger connections in communities impacted by violence. And so we're looking at talking to people, looking at media accounts, looking at social media, and as well as talking to the prosecutor's office and the police department to determine, for example, how many of these cases was substance use involved. We know from national statistics that a large number of people involved in violent acts are under the influences of alcohol or illegal drugs. So we want to see if that's a factor. We identified, kind of created the tools and worksheets to look at that, and then the work groups have set up on their own to start to take in that information. So I think we're looking at doing that process, having a couple more informational meetings. We're going to have the Columbia Public Schools. We want to bring the police back for follow-up questions that we didn't feel were fully answered at the first session that they came. And then we also want to bring out the Youth Mental Health Board. We passed a 8% sales tax for youth mental health programming. And so we want to talk about how anti-violence work can be part of that. And so we're bringing them in to talk about the works that they're doing. And as you mentioned about, we're still not real clear who all are factors in violence prevention. We tend to focus on kind of our deficits or the problem areas, as we should, but I suspect that there's already a lot of things going on in our community. We have an active, caring community with groups like Youth Empowerment Zone that's already doing a lot of stuff. From my research in regards to anti-gang work, if you look at communities that are impacted by violence, then really the best approaches are to build up anything that's not that. So be it that could be churches or neighborhood associations or Citizen Watch, or even things like chess club or marching band or anything that isn't drugs and violence. And so we're going to have to also look at what are people already doing and what are need areas that we can support.
Okay. So what are you expecting to receive from Columbia Public Schools? I know you said that you are going to have them to speak before the task force. Is there something particular that you are expecting to receive from Columbia Public Schools?
I'm looking at, are they seeing any trends within the schools, as far as violence or gang activity? What are they doing regarding truancy? Because we know truancy and crime and kids not getting an education is part of a factor. So we're looking at seeing, what they offer and what they're doing as far as that piece of the puzzle, because it's a community issue and it's something that can't be just solved by the city government or the police department. It involves the school. It's going to involve, the nonprofits and churches and all of us working together to look at and solve this problem. And so we're looking to see what they're contributing to their piece of the puzzle.
Okay. That's good. Again, we would encourage you to ask questions. You can always call us at 573-876-7158, or you can hit us on Twitter at #ComoWGO, or email us at wgo@columbiaaccess.tv. At the Youth Empowerment Zone, we realized that we had to have the young people to kind of guide and lead us in the direction of which would be successful with working with them. What are you guys doing for as including that youth voice on this task force?
Well, right now we've got the survey that we're working on to get the youth to give us their perspective, because I think some of those questions included, what type of programming would interest you? Would you go to any of the programming? And if so, what kind? What kind of violence have you been exposed to, or your family or friends? What do they think is the cause of some of the violence and problems in our community? And so that's going to go out to a wide group of youth in our community. And as we move forward, we'll have to see what the task force members wish to do, because again, we're just the co-chairs and we're just kind of there to help facilitate. Really, the true workings of the task force are coming from those individual members. And so hopefully as we move forward, we will be able to maybe ask some of the youth in our community to come together. And I know the Youth Community Coalition as well has offered to host some youth forums. Mm-hmm. And so that might be an avenue that we take to have some forums where the youth can actually come and ask us questions or present topics for them to get involved in and answer in a dialogue manner. And so that, I think, is hopefully something we can do in the future.
Okay. Now, the mayor convened this task force, and I read the purpose of it is to provide a comprehensive recommendation of programs and actions that will have a measurable and lasting impact for reducing violence. Now, I mean, since the mayor recommended and convened this task force, what type of legs will be added onto, for instance, once the task force come up with, okay, here's a program that we think will work, but it's gonna cost $1 million. Where is that money gonna come from?
There's not $1 million laying around in the city. So there's a kind of a couple answers there's a couple things that are going to allow this to be successful. One is we have the task force itself is a broad cross-section of the community. So the recommendations that the task force make are going to be representative of the views of a large part of the community. One of the things that we've decided is to make as many decisions as we can by consensus. So we're really not looking to what can we muscle through with a bare majority of votes, but we're really trying to come up with something that everybody's going to agree on. Now, after the task force makes its recommendations, that's really where Laura and I come in as members of City Council. We're in a unique position to be able to champion the recommendations of the task force. There's been some questions about why is a City Council person on a Citizens Task Force. Usually these things are, we have City Council meetings and then we have Citizen Task Force. This is the first kind of hybrid approach. And I think it's a really strong approach because we are going to be invested in the decisions of the task force because we were there. We helped facilitate that process. The great thing about Laura and I being there, we come from sort of different political philosophies, but we have a shared passion for youth, and we're focusing on issues that we both have consensus on. We both appreciate a scientific approach, we both have a lot of compassion, and we both recognize that government alone is going to be unable to solve that problem. So we will have recommendations for City Council. If there are things that cost dollars, I don't think that we're going to just be able to expect all of those dollars to come from City Council. We're going to have to look at, one of the things is we have representatives of the business community. So if we can build, if we're doing mentoring, then we'll have people who are in the task force who have constituencies to find mentors. If we're doing a program that needs funds, then we might want to reach out to the business community and see what the private sector is willing to put forward to help things. We also have folks who are well networked and involved with the church community. So those are going to be the strengths as we look forward. So city government's not going to be able to do this. We're in a time of shrinking budgets. Of the general fund revenue has not kept up with inflation and population growth in the city. So there's not going to be a lot of new dollars for new programs. So if that's people's expectation, that expectation may not be met. Part of the recommendations that we're going to have to make will also have to be how we can fund those. One of the things that has come up a number of times, the two biggest themes that I've heard so far are mentoring. That's a relatively low-cost program. There's already programs that are doing that we might be able to build on. And then community policing. Community policing takes a lot of additional officers. So if we're going to if the task force ends up recommending a community policing approach, I suspect the task force will also have to recommend how we're going to fund those new officers to be able to do the community policing. One thing that I don't want to see us do is recommend an illusion that we say you should do this when we know that the police are already at just being able to respond to calls, investigating the most serious crimes, and the small amount of community policing that we're already doing taxes the present resources of our police. If we're going to involve them in other things beyond those things, then we're going to need more of them, and the task force is going to have to make recommendations about how we can pay for those.
Well, thank you. Well, as we winding down this show, I definitely want to let my audience know that you can be here live at our next show, which is going to air on December the 3rd, but you would have to RSVP by Monday, December the 2nd, so that we can have a correct number of who's going to be in the audience. And you can call and RSVP at 573-442-4447, or email us at info@columbiaaccess.tv. Again, the show will be airing again, re-airing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. on CAT TV, and on Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Again, we want to thank you for being here and tuning in to our very first What's Going On. We have about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to give our guests some time. If you have something else that you want to say about the task force and how you feel about it, let the audience know.
Well, I think that the mayor has assembled a wonderful group of individuals who all care about our community. And they bring a wide diversity of work backgrounds to the task force. And so I'm encouraged that we're really going to be able to look at some of these issues and come up with some solutions for our community so that we can move forward and reduce some of this violence that we're seeing, especially amongst our young people. You know, many communities have a lot of issues, and so, but I think what really sets Columbia apart is we have a vast amount of people who really care and are really ready to get involved. So, and I encourage members of the audience and the community too to come to those meetings. Again, we typically have them on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 5:30 down at City Hall, and come and share your thoughts and concerns with the task force so that we can take those into consideration as we move forward.
And stay tuned. You can look on the city website for the next meeting. Since we're going into the holidays, I think there's going to be some change of schedule, but we will get it out to the public as soon as possible. Mike, would you have a final word for our audience?
I've been impressed with the work of the task force, the ability to listen, the discipline. We all want to make speeches. We're all strong personalities, but we do most of the time we're listening. And I have a lot of respect for our commitment to consensus, to coming up with something that all of the community is going to agree on. I appreciate your own work in the task force. You're a big part of it and have been our moderator, and I'm very flattered that you would choose Laura and I to be on your first show, and it's a big honor for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We want to thank Mike and Laura for coming, and they are very busy people. They could be at many different places, but they decided to be on What's Going On. We want to thank you for tuning in, because we know that you could be looking at any other station, but right now you choose to look at what's going on. And we want to be very careful to try to give you the information that you need about what's going on here in Columbia. I want to say thanks to Jennifer Erickson, the executive director, Sean Brown, our program director, and most importantly, I want to say thanks to each and every one of you who have tuned in today. We hope that you will tune back in next month, December the 3rd. We will be going live at 5 p.m. If you want to be in the audience, RSVP, you can call 573-442-4447 and get your RSVP in, or go to info@columbiaaccesstv.tv. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And remember, you need to know what's going on.